Namaskar. Today I'd like to start with a question. And that question is, if you are really satisfied with the life of just surviving, going to work, taking care of your children, eating, sleeping, all of these mundane things that we need to do to survive, is that really enough? This was the question that actually I began my spiritual journey with. There was a burning feeling inside of me that something was missing, that there had to be more to life than this. I saw what everybody else was running after: material success, jobs, careers, money, possessions, and all of it just seemed limited. It didn't really seem like that's all that life could be about. And so there was a deep curiosity in me. What is there more? And when we cultivate this type of curiosity, our life transforms and becomes a type of quest. This is a question that attracts a type of serendipity, a type of magical grace, where things start happening that aren't just accidental. When you start looking for meaning in life, and there's that intense desire for something more, this is what actually attracts spiritual teachings. In fact, I think that was something I'd read. I'd read in a book around that time, when I was like about 20, and I'd read that when the student is ready, the spiritual master will appear. So I understood that there must be this intense longing. And I really was literally ready for just a master to appear. And yet, at the same time, I was also kind of a pragmatic person. And at that moment, I'd finished university and I was staying with my parents where they lived, which was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is kind of in the center of the US. And at that point, I had a sort of personal conviction that all the interesting and innovative things came from the West Coast, like California, or the East Coast, like New York, and slowly came towards the center of the US, and the last place they reached was Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I thought maybe I should help things along a little bit. So I decided to go to Chicago, where a friend of mine was living, and there to really find a spiritual path. Because, okay, maybe the master theoretically could come in the middle of a cornfield, but I knew that in Chicago there's a whole lot more events happening every day. And so I thought I would go there. And indeed, when I came to Chicago, there was tons of events happening. And so the process was indeed really magical. I had these inner longings, these inner questions, and it seemed like I was being guided. I kept finding paths and people that seemed very familiar and that held a lot of meaning for me. But at the same time, the whole process was getting really confusing, because I already had a feeling that I wasn't going to be satisfied just mixing a little bit of here and there and like this. I felt like I really wanted something that had roots, that had a tradition that I could count on, that would take me deep into a practice. I felt like if I just stay, picking from here and there, that I'll stay just at the surface level. So I was really interested to go deep. And I felt I needed to find the right path that I was ready to commit to, and that I trusted could take me deep, not just something somebody invented yesterday. I wanted a feeling of tradition, of roots. And so, I'd met at least 2 or 3 that kind of fit that criteria, but still, every time I went to one of these gatherings, and in Chicago, it was like almost every week you could find some kind of major spiritual gathering with hundreds of people, and very interesting. But every time I went, I had this question, how to know what is the right path. And the teachers gave me very wise answers, were very compassionate. Why such a beautiful girl, doesn't know yet which way to go. I don't know, something like this. But it wasn't an answer to my question. Or the Zen answer: you must first know who you are, and then you'll know which is the right path. Okay. Anyway, I then one day sat down before going to work, and I really tried to put it all on paper. I was writing a letter to one of the gurus I'd met, and I was writing and writing and writing, and I wrote like 2 pages long. And in the middle of that process, I was trying to describe to her this dilemma that I had. And the dilemma was whether I should go to an ashram and really like deepen spiritual practice, or whether I should go and volunteer somewhere in the world, like with Peace Corps or Greenpeace, and at the same time, how to know which is the right path and which is the right teaching. And so I was asking this question, and at a certain point, I just realized that nobody can answer this for me. That it was just absurd to even look for this answer outside of myself. Because even if somebody gave me the answer, I'd probably still doubt it. So I just closed my eyes and kind of addressed myself to the universe. I really didn't know exactly. I was like, okay, I don't know exactly how to call out to you. I don't know what to call you at this moment, but I know there's somebody listening. I know there's somebody there. So please just show me the right path for me and make it really clear. Like no more little subtle hints. Just shine a big light and show me that this is the right way to go. And so it was actually that same day in the afternoon that I met my path. There was a teacher who was dressed in orange, very similar to me, with a guitar, Dada Sarvabodhananda, and he was just so shiny and welcoming. And I was sure I was maybe in the wrong place because I just happened to be like in between waiting for an appointment, and I had some time to kill, and I saw a little flyer that was hanging up at the elevator of the place where I worked. And it was really, really simple. I mean, there was no graphic design or particular marketing or anything fancy. All I remember, it was kind of handwritten, photocopied, but it said, self-realization and service to all. Somehow those words just penetrated into me. And I was like, this is going to be it. This is the answer. This is what I'm looking for. It was the combination of the two things that were at the middle of my dilemma. On the one hand, volunteer work, service, and on the other hand, self-realization, and they were combined. And somehow I just knew this was going to be the answer. And when I went, everything that Dada Sarvabodhananda said that day, every word, it was just like wind blowing away the clouds and leaving blue sky. It just made everything so clear. I don't even remember what he said exactly. I just remember the feeling of clarity, the feeling of all my doubts, all of my questions, just getting an answer. And there was an overwhelming feeling of just having found home. I didn't even have that question I'd had in all these other places. Which is the right place? How will I know the right path? There was a deep inner resonance in me. Now, I was a fruit ripe for picking, and I've come to realize not everybody's like this. But sometimes it takes us a lot longer to warm up to a path and to sort of feel comfortable and to realize what's the right path for us. But in my case, it was that intensity of longing, the intensity to find the right path, that I think was really part of what helped me to have that clarity so quickly. So, life is a quest. And in order to live life like a quest, it's important to have a question. And this is what's called Pariprashna in Sanskrit. It means to have a spiritual question. And it's having that spiritual question that gives a direction to life. It makes your life transform out of something ordinary into something extraordinary. I remember meeting a very senior practitioner, a very senior sadhaka in Calcutta. And he said to me, you know, I don't want to be an ordinary man. I want to be extraordinary. And so I don't approach my meditation just like some routine. I approach it like research. And so he talked about how every night he'd even like drink a whole bunch of water just so he'd wake up in the middle of the night. He knew he didn't have so much time for meditation practices during the day. And so this was his strategy. Quite amazing. And he'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd do long sadhana when it was very quiet in the house and there was no other disturbance and everything was peaceful. But what remained with me, I'm not somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night like that, but I admire it. And what really struck me was the way that he talked about, making your sadhana, making your spiritual practice a quest, to make it a research. And indeed, throughout life, that's what I found, is that, it's very easy for anything to turn into just some kind of dry routine. And that is when we lose a bit our inspiration. Now, at the beginning, I always stress to people, when you're first learning meditation, your first goal is to make it a routine so that you don't even have to think about it. So it becomes like brushing your teeth. So that, in the morning, I don't think about whether or not I have time to brush my teeth. I simply can't go out until I've brushed my teeth. It's just something that's become integrated into my routine. In the same way, meditation, if I haven't done meditation, I don't even think, do I have time? Do I not have time? I have to do it. It makes me feel the same like taking a shower or like brushing my teeth. It makes me feel prepared. It makes me feel ready to face the day. And so at the beginning, it's important to create that type of routine because that gives you momentum. That's what gives you steadiness in your practice. But as you develop, you have to keep alive that motivation. And the motivation comes from cultivating a question. From cultivating that question, is there more? What is really the essence? What is deep inside of me? What is the nature of myself? What is consciousness? What is love? What is beauty? Why is life? What makes life move? These types of subtle questions, they attract subtle answers and they help us to evolve. They help us to grow. So I hope that this video inspires you in your quest for meaning, in your quest to go deep and to have a spiritual life. So I wish you well with your awakening, and I hope that you will start practicing meditation if you haven't already, or you'll go deeper into your practice. Namaskar.